The Impossible Assignment. The Academy of Impossible Things. Kepler station rotated slowly against the backdrop of a binary star system, its crystalline spires catching the light of twin suns. This was the Galactic Engineering Consortium's most prestigious academy, where the brightest minds from across 47 star systems came to study the mysteries of advanced technology. The station housed over 3,000 students, representing 89 different species, each bringing their unique perspectives to solve the galaxy's greatest challenges. Sarah Chen walked through the Academy's main corridor, her worn Earth-made boots clicking against the polished metamaterial floor. At 22 years old, she was the only human among the Academy's elite student body. Her acceptance had caused quite a stir in galactic academic circles. Humans were still considered a curiosity, a young species that had barely mastered interstellar travel, let alone earned a place among the galaxy's intellectual elite. The other students gave her a wide berth as she passed. Some stared with open fascination, others with barely concealed disdain. Sarah had grown accustomed to both reactions during her 6 months at the Academy. Earth's reputation as a death world preceded her everywhere she went. Professor Zixel's Advanced Containment Theory class was held in Laboratory Complex 7, a massive chamber designed to handle the most dangerous experimental materials in known space. The professor himself was an impressive sight, a being of living crystal from Sirian Prime, his faceted body refracting light into beautiful rainbow patterns. His species had mastered energy manipulation techniques that other civilizations could barely comprehend. Sarah took her usual seat in the back row, surrounded by empty chairs. Her nearest classmate, Kethar, a reptilian Draknari with scales that shifted color based on his emotional state, sat 3 rows ahead. The massive Cronin student named Gorth occupied a reinforced section designed for his species' significant mass. Vina, an ethereal being from the Lumina Collective, floated in her specialized atmospheric chamber, her translucent form pulsing with soft bioluminescence. Today, Professor Zixtal announced, his voice resonating like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, "We face the ultimate challenge in containment engineering. You will design systems capable of holding the most destructive force known to our galaxy." The laboratory's main display activated, showing swirling footage of a cosmic phenomenon that made several students instinctively lean back in their seats. A Class 5 plasma storm raged across the screen, its tendrils of superheated matter reaching temperatures that could melt through heavy cruiser armor in seconds. Plasma storms, the professor continued, have destroyed entire star systems. They consume everything in their path. Matter, energy, even space-time itself warps around their intensity. The Andorian system fell to one such storm 50 years ago. 12 billion souls lost in a matter of hours. Gorth's massive frame shuddered, causing his seat's stabilizers to engage. His people had ancestral memories of plasma storms devastating their homeworld's moon colonies. Vina's bioluminescence dimmed to almost nothing, while Kethar's scales shifted to deep purple, the color of fear among his species. Sarah leaned forward, studying the storm's behavior patterns with intense curiosity. Where others saw destruction, she saw something else entirely. The storm's movements weren't random. There was a rhythm to it, almost like a heartbeat. "Your assignment," Professor Zixtal announced, "is to design a theoretical containment system capable of holding a Class 5 plasma storm for extended study. This is purely theoretical, of course. No known technology can safely contain such forces. The best our greatest minds have achieved is brief electromagnetic cading lasting mere seconds before catastrophic failure." A student from the gas giant Methanos raised a tentacle. "Professor, surely this is impossible. The energy requirements alone would exceed most star systems' total output." "Indeed, Fluxar. This assignment is designed to push your theoretical understanding to its absolute limits. You have 1 standard galactic week to present your designs. Remember, this is merely an exercise in advanced theoretical engineering." Sarah raised her hand. The professor's crystalline form shifted, rainbow patterns dancing across his surface as he focused on her. The entire classroom fell silent. The human rarely spoke during lectures, but when she did, her questions often challenged fundamental assumptions that had stood for millennia. What if we approached this differently? Sarah asked. What if instead of trying to contain the storm through brute force, we try to understand what it actually wants? A ripple of confused chittering, whistling, and harmonic tones filled the classroom. Kethar's scales flashed bright yellow, the color of amusement among his people. "Want?" he hissed. "It is a plasma storm, not a conscious entity. It doesn't want anything." Sarah stood up, her earthborn confidence apparent in her straight posture. Everything in the universe follows patterns. Even chaos has rules. What if these storms aren't just random destructions? What if they're trying to accomplish something specific? Professor Zixtal's crystalline form hummed with interest. An intriguing hypothesis, Miss Chen. However, plasma storms are well-understood phenomena. They are the result of stellar magnetic field collapse creating cascading plasma reactions. There is no consciousness involved. Then why do they follow predictable paths through space? Sarah asked. Why do they seem to seek out certain types of matter over others? Why do they avoid some electromagnetic frequencies while being attracted to others? The classroom erupted in discussion. Some students dismissed Sarah's questions as primitive thinking from a death-world species. Others, particularly the more advanced theoretical students, began considering her words with genuine interest. Professor Zixtal raised one crystalline appendage for silence. "Miss Chen, your questions touch on fringe theories that have been largely dismissed by mainstream xenoscience. However, if you believe your approach has merit, perhaps you would be willing to test it." Sarah felt every eye in the classroom focus on her. What kind of test? We happen to have a contained plasma sample in our high-energy laboratory. It's only a Class 2 intensity, barely a fragment compared to a true storm, but it exhibits many of the same properties. If your theories about communication or understanding have any validity, perhaps you could demonstrate them. The classroom fell completely silent. Even the ambient hum of the station's life support systems seemed muted. A Class 2 plasma sample was still incredibly dangerous. Exposure meant instant death. The containment systems required constant monitoring and had multiple failsafes precisely because the plasma was so destructive. Kethar's scales had gone completely white, the color of terror. "Professor, surely you cannot be serious. No student has ever been permitted direct interaction with contained plasma. The safety protocols alone are designed for species that fear such phenomena." Professor Zixtal interrupted. "Miss Chen's species comes from what we classified as a Class 9 death world. Perhaps their tolerance for dangerous environments extends to plasma exposure." Sarah felt her heart rate increase, but not from fear. This was the opportunity she'd been hoping for since arriving at the Academy. A chance to prove that humans brought something unique to galactic civilization, something that went beyond their reputation for violence and survival. "I'll do it," she said simply. The reaction was immediate and intense. Gorth's massive bulk shifted nervously, causing structural creaking in his seating area. Vena's luminescence began pulsing rapidly in the pattern her species used to express extreme distress. Other students throughout the classroom began vocalizing in their native languages, sounds of protest, disbelief, and genuine concern. The liability alone, began a student from the highly bureaucratic Pepperin species, could expose the Academy to lawsuits from 17 different galactic legal jurisdictions, finished his partner. Professor Zixtal's form darkened slightly. "Miss Chen, I must inform you that this test carries significant risk. Our medical bay is equipped to handle most species injuries, but human physiology is still relatively unknown to our staff. If something goes wrong—" "It won't," Sarah interrupted with quiet confidence. "But I understand the risks. I accept them." The professor studied her for a long moment, his crystalline facets reflecting the laboratory's lighting in complex patterns. Finally, he nodded. "Very well. We will conduct the test during next class period. Security protocols will be in full effect. Medical teams will be standing by. And Miss Chen. Yes, Professor. I sincerely hope your theories prove correct. Because if they don't, we will be witnessing the first human fatality in Academy history. As the class period ended and students filed out in animated discussion groups, Sarah remained in her seat, staring at the now blank display where the plasma storm footage had played. She was committed now. In 3 days, she would face a contained fragment of one of the galaxy's most destructive forces. But Sarah Chen hadn't come to the Academy to play it safe. She'd come to prove that humans belonged among the stars, not as curiosities or warriors, but as partners in the galaxy's greatest endeavors. And if that meant making friends with a plasma storm, well, she'd faced worse things growing up on Earth. After all, she was human. Making the impossible possible was what her species did best. When lightning becomes your friend. The Chamber of Controlled Chaos. 3 days later, Laboratory Complex 7 had been transformed into something resembling a combat zone. Emergency response teams from 6 different species stood ready outside the chamber. Medical personnel had reviewed every piece of available literature on human physiology, preparing for injuries they hoped never to treat. The Academy's top administrators watched from a heavily shielded observation deck, their various forms of anxiety apparent despite their alien physiologies. Sarah stood before the entrance to the high-energy containment chamber, wearing a specially modified environmental suit designed to provide some protection against plasma exposure. The suit's readings displayed on her helmet's HUD, multiple backup life support systems, emergency teleportation beacon, and enough shielding to theoretically survive brief plasma contact. Theoretically. Final systems check, announced Dr. Veltar, the Academy's chief safety officer. His insectoid form scuttled between monitoring stations, compound eyes tracking dozens of readouts simultaneously. Containment field at maximum stability. Plasma sample reading Class 2.3 intensity. Emergency protocols are active. Professor Zixtal approached Sarah, his crystalline form reflecting the chamber's warning lights. Miss Chen, you still have time to reconsider. No one would think less of you for stepping back from this test. Sarah smiled inside her helmet. Professor, where I come from, we have a saying. Fortune favors the bold. Besides, I'd spent the last 3 days analyzing every sensor reading we have of this plasma sample. I think I understand what it's trying to do. And what exactly do you believe it's trying to do? Communicate, Sarah said simply. It's been sending out patterns, electromagnetic pulses in specific sequences. They're not random. They're messages. Through the observation deck's reinforced transparent steel, Sarah could see her classmates watching with expressions of fascination and horror. Kethar's scales were cycling through colors so rapidly they appeared to be strobing. Gorth had gripped his seat's armrests so tightly that stress fractures were beginning to appear in the reinforced metal. Vina had dimmed her luminescence to barely perceptible levels, the lumina equivalent of hiding behind her hands. The containment chamber doors opened with a hiss of equalizing atmosphere. Sarah stepped inside, and the doors sealed behind her with finality that echoed through the laboratory complex. The chamber was larger than she'd expected, roughly the size of a small warehouse, with walls lined with exotic matter composites designed to absorb and redirect energy. At the center, suspended in a complex array of electromagnetic field generators, was the plasma sample. It was beautiful. The plasma danced and writhed within its containment field, tendrils of superheated matter reaching out only to be redirected by invisible barriers. Its color shifted constantly, deep blue to brilliant white to fierce orange, with occasional flashes of colors that human eyes weren't designed to perceive. The HUD in Sarah's helmet struggled to process the visual input, occasionally flickering with static. But it was the sound that caught Sarah's attention. Through her suit's sensors, she could hear the plasma's electromagnetic emissions translated into audio. It wasn't the random crackling she'd expected. There was structure to it, rhythm, pattern, almost like a language. Containment holding at 99.7% efficiency. Dr. Veltar's voice crackled through her comm system. Plasma activity is unusual. It appears to be responding to your presence. Sarah could see what he meant. The plasma's movements had changed since she entered the chamber. Instead of the random writhing motion it had exhibited before, it was now pulsing in regular intervals. The electromagnetic emissions were strengthening, creating more complex patterns. "Hello there," Sarah said softly, stepping closer to the containment field. "I know you can sense me. I'm here because I think we might have gotten off on the wrong foot as a galaxy." The plasma's pulsing intensified. Colors shifted rapidly through its form, and the electromagnetic patterns became more sophisticated. Sarah's suit began registering harmonic frequencies that her instruments had never detected before. "Warning," Dr. Veltar's voice cut through the comm with obvious strain. "Plasma activity increasing beyond predicted parameters. Miss Chen, perhaps you should." Alarms began blaring throughout the laboratory complex. Red warning lights bathed the chamber as multiple systems registered containment stress. "Containment field at 89% efficiency and dropping," Dr. Veltar announced, his usually calm professional demeanor cracking. "Emergency evacuation protocols are now active. Miss Chen, you must exit the chamber immediately." Through the observation deck windows, Sarah could see her classmates being herded toward emergency exits by security personnel. Several professors were arguing with the evacuation teams, refusing to leave their positions. Professor Zixtel's crystalline form was pulsing with rapid color changes, the Xerian equivalent of extreme distress. The containment field flickered. For a brief moment, the electromagnetic barriers failed, and the plasma expanded outward. Sarah felt the wave of superheated energy wash over her environmental suit. Warning alarms screamed in her helmet as surface temperatures spiked beyond safe limits. But instead of running, Sarah stepped closer. "You're not trying to hurt me," she said, watching the plasma's behavior more carefully. "You're excited. You've been trapped in that field for months, and now someone's finally paying attention to you." The plasma's movements suddenly changed. Instead of chaotic expansion, it began forming shapes, geometric patterns that held for several seconds before transforming into new configurations. Sarah recognized some of the mathematics from her advanced field theory classes. "Dr. Veltar," Sarah said into her comm, "I need you to reduce the containment field strength by 20%. "Absolutely not," came the immediate reply. "Miss Chen, return to the exit immediately. We are initiating emergency teleportation protocols." "Wait," Sarah called out. "It's trying to show me something. Look at the patterns it's making. Those are mathematical constants. It's demonstrating intelligence." The plasma had formed a perfect double helix structure, rotating slowly within the weakened containment field. As Sarah watched, it transformed the helix into a series of prime numbers expressed in base 8 mathematics, then shifted to what appeared to be a stellar map showing local gravitational relationships. "Impossible," Professor Zixtel's voice came through the comm, awed despite the emergency situation. "Those calculations are postgraduate level astrophysics." Sarah removed her helmet. The action caused immediate pandemonium in the observation deck. Emergency alarms reached deafening levels as her suit's life support systems screamed warnings about atmospheric contamination and radiation exposure. "Miss Chen, replace your helmet immediately." Dr. Veltar's voice was nearly hysterical. Plasma exposure without full protection is invariably fatal. But Sarah could now hear the plasma's electromagnetic emissions directly, translated through her suit's audio systems. It wasn't random noise. It was music. Complex, beautiful, alien music with harmonies that seemed to resonate in her bones. "You're not a destructive force," Sarah said, addressing the plasma directly. "You're alive. You're a living energy being, and you've been trying to communicate with us for years." The plasma's response was immediate and dramatic. Its form expanded again, but this time in controlled patterns. It created shapes that clearly represented star systems, then showed what appeared to be travel routes between them. The electromagnetic music became more complex, incorporating rhythms that suggested joy and excitement. The containment field is destabilizing, Dr. Veltar announced. Evacuation in progress. Sarah held up her hand toward the observation deck, then turned back to the plasma being. You follow the magnetic field lines between stars, don't you? That's why you seem to seek out specific paths through space. You're not destroying things, you're traveling, looking for others like yourself. The plasma formed what could only be described as a nodding motion, cycling through colors that seemed to indicate agreement. Then it began showing Sarah something else. Images of other plasma formations throughout the galaxy, some massive and some tiny, all connected by invisible threads of electromagnetic force. You're not alone, Sarah whispered. There are others, a whole civilization of energy beings that we never recognized because we assumed you were just destructive storms. The being's response was to create a beautiful, complex mandala of energy that rotated slowly in 3 dimensions. At its center, 2 small forms appeared to be reaching toward each other, one representing Sarah, the other the plasma being itself. Sarah. Professor Zixtel's voice came through the calmer now, but filled with awe. The plasma entity appears to be offering some form of partnership. The mathematical structures it's displaying suggest advanced energy manipulation techniques that could revolutionize our understanding of physics. Sarah nodded, stepping even closer to the failing containment field. You want to help us, don't you? You've been watching our civilizations develop, waiting for someone to realize you weren't just forces of destruction. The plasma being pulsed once, brightly, in what was unmistakably an affirmative response. Then let's work together, Sarah said. Show me how to safely interact with your people. Teach us how to communicate with energy beings. Help us understand the universe from your perspective. What happened next would be talked about in academic circles for generations. The plasma being carefully extended a tendril of superheated matter towards Sarah's outstretched hand. Instead of the instant death that every safety protocol predicted, the plasma formed a stable interface with Sarah's environmental suit, creating a direct communication link between human and energy being. Information flowed between them, not words, but pure understanding. Sarah saw the universe from the perspective of a creature made of living energy, witnessed the birth and death of stars through eyes that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. She understood how plasma storms navigated through space, following invisible highways of magnetic force that connected all matter in the cosmos. In return, she shared human perspectives, the experience of existing in solid matter, the concept of individual consciousness housed in biological form, the story of a species that had learned to survive by adapting to impossible circumstances. The exchange lasted only seconds in real time, but when it ended, both human and plasma being had been fundamentally changed. Containment field restored to full strength, Dr. Veltar announced, his voice filled with wonder. Plasma entity has voluntarily returned to stable configuration. All readings show it is. Calm. Content even. Sarah replaced her helmet and turned toward the observation deck, where dozens of the galaxy's brightest minds stared at her in stunned silence. Ladies, gentlemen, and entities of all classifications, she said, I'd like you to meet our first official contact with a plasma civilization. They're not storms, they're people, and they've been waiting a very long time for someone to say hello. As Sarah exited the containment chamber, she carried with her the knowledge that would transform galactic civilization. The plasma beings had given her the key to clean, unlimited energy, not through force or containment, but through partnership and mutual respect. But more importantly, she had proven something that the galaxy was only beginning to understand about humans. They didn't just survive in impossible circumstances. They found ways to thrive by turning the impossible into the inevitable. And sometimes, they made friends with the very forces that other species fled from in terror. The plasma being continued to pulse gently in its containment field, no longer a captive specimen but a willing ambassador. And in the observation deck, alien minds began to grasp a truth that would reshape their understanding of the universe. Humans weren't just another species to be cataloged and studied. They were partners, bridge builders, the ones who could find common ground with anything, even living lightning. The galaxy would never be the same.